The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Hello everyone, welcome into Students of the Game. My name is Alex Baumann, and I'm joined by my two co-hosts today, Nathan Glidewell and Gray Oldenburg. Teased it last week, the bracket has been released for men's March Madness. We're going to go through it, make our picks, maybe get it right this year if Gray doesn't mess us up at all, pick the wrong teams. But we're going to go through all the matchups, get down to our championship game, and pick that championship winner and the final score. So let's start off with, we're going to go region by region. Let's start with the South region, where the Auburn Tigers, the number one overall seed, play the winner of Alabama State and St. Francis. I think it's kind of easy to go here, guys. Put Auburn through the one seed. We've only seen this 2 times in tournament history where a one seed has won in the first round. So we're just going to take the odds here. Auburn wins.
Yes, for sure.
Okay, so a much more difficult matchup now at 8-9. These are always most difficult matchups to pick because it's such a close argument. Louisville playing Creighton in Lexington, Kentucky, so Louisville has the home court advantage. But Creighton, they have veteran leadership with Ashworth and Ryan Kalkbrenner. Louisville last year, or the past couple of years, has been abysmal. Pat Kelsey in year one gets his team to the ACC championship, loses to Duke, but we know how good this team can be under a guy that has led teams here before with Charleston. But who are we going to take in this matchup with Louisville versus Creighton?
I was always tempted to go Louisville, but because Louisville, I think the seeding is a little low for this Louisville team. Them being an 8 seed and being a top 10 team in the country and really high up there in net, I believe. It was a little weird. And then disappointed you made, Alex, about the home court advantage of this being in Lexington, Kentucky. That's a big deal. But Louisville's dealing with some injuries right now, especially to their front court. And Creighton is not the team that you want to play when you've got injuries to your front court with a guy like Ryan Kalkbrenner. So I'm going to take the Blue Jays and let y'all steer this for me.
Yeah, I'm going to also agree with that there. I think Kalkbrenner is just going to be a little bit too much. I think about what Louisville went through in the ACC. It wasn't a lot of great competition, and I think Creighton going through the Big East, having to play so much more formidable opponents has kind of prepared them a little bit more for this type of situation. So I think Creighton gets a pretty close win in Lexington. I think the home crowd is going to help Louisville out, but it's just not going to be enough.
In my bracket, I had Louisville, but obviously y'all picked it's 2-1, so my pick really doesn't matter at the end of the day. But Louisville being at home, Chucky Hepburn, their point guard, he's done amazing things, hit the game winner against Stanford. You have Terrence Edwards Jr., who came from James Madison. So you have a lot of guys you look at for Louisville, but Gray mentioned that injuries. Rain Smith is dealing with an injury. He's their most prolific three-point shooter. But you also can't ignore Creighton's injuries either. Pop Isaacs, he's done for the year. They weathered that storm, but they're heavily reliant on Stephen Ashworth and Ryan Kalkbrenner. So that could be an issue for Creighton in this matchup is if Ashworth can't hit the 3 ball or anybody on the team can't hit the 3 ball, which Creighton is live and die by almost, can Ryan Kalkbrenner carry the load for this team? And he struggled in years past to do that, but with y'all picking it, we'll just go with Creighton with the 2-1 odds there with y'all. Next, everybody's picking this upset, but let's talk about it. 5-seeded Michigan taking on 12-seeded UC San Diego. Michigan, the Big Ten winners. How do we see this panning out? Are we going with the everybody here that's picking this upset with UC San Diego, or are we going to take the Wolverines who are riding hot into the tournament?
I originally wanted to be one of those guys to take UC San Diego. I like the way they play. They are not good defensively, and that worries me against a very red-hot Michigan team who just steamed through the Big Ten tournament. Guys like Danny Wolf, Vlad Golden, Trey Donaldson starting to play his best basketball of his career. The Auburn transfer. So I'm going to steer away from picking this upset, the 5-12, and I'm going to team Michigan here and let y'all see if y'all agree with me. But this is definitely one to definitely keep your eye on. If UC San Diego finds themselves in a close game with Michigan, 4 minutes left or something like that, this definitely could be an upset. But I think Michigan, their size, the way that they played at the Big Ten tournament, I'm going to go with Michigan.
Yeah, I'm also going to agree with you there. I think Michigan's front court is the mismatch in this matchup. I think UC San Diego is perfectly capable of getting this upset win, but the size worries me, and that is a big thing when you have guys like Danny Wolf who are very experienced when it comes to tournament time, and they know how to win games like this. I don't think they're going to shy away from the big moment. I think Michigan does come away with the win there. I also think that Trey Donaldson is a key part to this Michigan team and what they're able to do on the offensive end. And I think Michigan's just going to be a little bit too much for UC San Diego.
We're going to make it a clean sweep here. I'm going Michigan as well. UC San Diego, I know they had a great year. Didn't play a whole lot of good teams. I know UC Irvine's one of their biggest opponents, lost to them once. But Michigan, you don't have the size to go up against them, Vlad Golden, Danny Wolf. You don't have what you need to go against the 2 7-footers. So we'll take Michigan to advance there, not go with the trendy upset pick. But another trendy upset pick, Yale, the 13 seed, taking on 4 seed Texas A&M. Are we taking the Bulldogs to advance to the round of 32 for the second straight year, or are we taking A&M to avoid the upset?
This one's – I've been back and forth on this one because both of these two teams rebound the ball very, very well, and they're both very streaky shooting teams, and they're both very physical teams. Whatever Texas A&M does well, Yale does well as well. So it's the perfect 4-13 matchup. Yale's red hot after going through and winning the Ivy League, just like they were last year for their matchup against Auburn in the round of 64 in the same spot, in the same bracket, by the way. I might point out against an SEC team, which is hilarious. So I am going to pick Yale. I think this you got to have upsets on this board. You got to have upsets throughout this bracket. I don't like how reliant Texas A&M has become on Wade Taylor the fourth. I think he's a very good player, but he's extremely streaky. And all it takes is him not shooting the ball well for 40 minutes against Yale, and Yale will beat them 100%.
Yeah, this is one pick that you always go back and forth on all the way up until brackets lock. I think both teams pretty much are identical. They have the same identity. They do the same things well. But I do think that Yale gives you a little bit more in the shooting department. And Gray talked about it with Texas A&M's being so reliant on Wade Taylor to do things on the offensive end. That's a recipe for disaster. I didn't like the way that Texas A&M competed against Texas in the SEC tournament. I thought they did a lot of things poorly. And ultimately, I think Yale is just going to be a little bit too better shooting, and I think they do get the upset here.
Well, in my bracket, I picked A&M, but I'm the same way, like Nathan talked about. This is a thing you look at till brackets lock, and Yale has proven year after year they can compete in this. Even the Ivy League as a whole has proved year after year they can compete when it comes to these brackets in this tournament. And Yale, you have the recipes, you have the veteran leadership, you have John Poulikitis, who Gray can talk all about with what he did to Auburn last year. If Danny Wolf was on Yale, this would be an easier pick for me, but we'll go with Yale being the clean sweep. I'll pick the Bulldogs here just because I'm so back and forth on it. It's probably the biggest game I'm back and forth on up to this point right now. All right, let's move on to the final few games here. Ole Miss, the 6th seed, taking on the winner of San Diego State and North Carolina. As the recording of this, we haven't seen the first 4 games, so we're just going to go with the winner of San Diego State, North Carolina. Who do we have winning this matchup with Ole Miss playing Auburn down to the wire, but being reliant, kind of like A&M is, on a guard in Sean Padula?
That's true. I think that's exactly it. I think Ole Miss has become a little bit too reliant on Sean Padula, who he was able to perform in their first round game in the SEC tournament against Arkansas and made the buzzer beater at the end. Of course, everybody remembers that, but also he was incredible throughout that whole game. And in games that Ole Miss has won and competed and done things really well, like when they beat Tennessee, when they beat Alabama, when they beat Kentucky, Sean Padula has been the driving force there. But I do not think that's a good recipe for March, especially when you're going to play – you might play a very veteran guard team in North Carolina, and a guy like R.J. Davis. So I don't like Ole Miss as a 6th seed at all. If I if I'm looking, I know they played in the SEC, and I know they have some really good wins on the resume, but I think that's a little bit too high for an Ole Miss team. I'm going to go with the winner of San Diego State, North Carolina. I don't like picking San Diego State if they were to beat North Carolina over Ole Miss, but I'm going to trust that the Tar Heels get it done on Tuesday night, continue what they had going in the second half versus Duke in the ACC semifinals, and I'm going to take North Carolina to advance.
Yeah, I think it's definitely one of those things where you got to wait until this first 4 games is done. If North Carolina comes away, I think that they beat Ole Miss. I think it's simple. Ole Miss struggles in their half-court offense, very reliant on Sean Padula to make threes. They get late in the shot clock a lot of the times, and they are heavily reliant on getting steals and running out in transition and scoring that way. If you can take care of the ball against this Ole Miss team and find ways to attack their defense, and you'll have no problem beating them. They cannot keep up in a scoring matchup, and I think that North Carolina is very favored in that. But it all comes down to if North Carolina can get out of the first 4. Right now, I'd say Ole Miss is probably going to drop to the first 4 team. But if San Diego State does end up coming out of there, then I think I might have to flip my pick.
UNC, it's just so senior laden. They have enough bodies to throw at a guy in Sean Padula. You got the big men to throw at Malik Dia, then Alan Lubin playing some of the best basketball of his career to end the season. UNC, if Jalen Withers decided to not step the wrong direction and just stay put, you could be talking about them being ACC champs. But I think that scenario right there where you lose to Duke in that way woke up North Carolina, and I think they're going to beat San Diego State and then get past an Ole Miss team that, as we've all mentioned, is way too reliant on a guy in Sean Padula to get them winning big moments. So we'll take UNC for the winner of the game, but we're kind of taking UNC to advance here. Next is a 3-14 matchup. Iowa State taking on Lipscomb. Iowa State going to miss their big point guard in this matchup and for the rest of the season. So that's a huge thing. Curtis Jones out. Do we think Lipscomb takes advantage of the hurt Iowa State team, or does Iowa State get past Lipscomb in this matchup?
I'm going to take Iowa State to get past them. I think Iowa State got pretty lucky with their draw in this game against Lipscomb. I do not like Lipscomb. You talk about their mid 80s in the net ranking as a 14 seed, but obviously winning the ASUN, but there's nobody in the ASUN. So earlier this season, Iowa State was nearly a buzzsaw. They were playing outstanding when they were healthy. Had Keyshawn Gilbert, Curtis Jones, just like you mentioned, Alex. But neither of those guys are going to play. So this is a really banged up Iowa State team coming into March, and this is the exact opposite recipe that you want to have success, especially at the guard positions. You do not want to have your guards hurt at all. But I don't think Lipscomb is able to overcome, so I'm going to take the Fighting Otzelbergers and the Cyclones.
I think I'll second that. Iowa State's one of those teams that has dealt with so many injuries throughout this latter part of the season, and it's one of those things where you might want to pick the upset here. But I don't know if Lipscomb has enough firepower to keep up with Iowa State's offense. Even with the injuries, they have been able to put up a lot of points in a lot of the games they play. If this was a different 14 seed, then maybe Iowa State goes down, but I just don't like what Lipscomb has to offer, so I'm going to go ahead and roll with Iowa State.
That will go with Iowa State to complete the sweep there. Last 2 matchups of this bracket in the first round. Let's start with Marquette taking on New Mexico, the 7-10 matchup. Who ends up winning this one, guys?
Man, talk about the matchup of guards here. Donovan Dent versus Cam Jones, 2 players that have been fantastic all year. New Mexico has let me down in the past. I know they let you down in the past too, Alex, especially last year, but they've let me down in the past as well. I love the way Shaka Smart coaches. I really like Cam Jones, but this Marquette team has fallen off from their projected 1 or 2 seed earlier in January this year. And I think their fall off continues. And I'm going to take the Lobos in New Mexico to advance.
No, you're really gonna regret that one.
No. Cam Jones and Marquette advance. It's as simple as that. New Mexico is banned.
I'm with Nathan there. Marquette has a guy in Stevie Mitchell that can take Donovan Dent out of the game. And New Mexico is the type of team where if Donovan Dent can get going, they really don't have anybody else at the guard position or depth-wise. They go about 7 deep to pick up the slack. So I'll take Marquette, and we'll break the tie. Last one, 2-15, Michigan State, Bryant. We expected an upset here. We've seen it in the past with 2 and 15 seeds, but do we think it's going to happen to Michigan State?
No. I think if there's any of them, Michigan State could be one this year, because I don't think it's happening to St. John's, and I definitely don't think it's happening to Alabama, and it's probably not going to happen to Tennessee either. But Michigan State is playing really well right now, even though they're lost in the Big Ten tournament. I think they're playing really well. They're really, 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 really deep. They got an outstanding freshman in Jason Richardson's son, who's playing well as well. So I'm going with Tom Izzo. It's his month.
It's his month.
It's his month.
All right, let's quickly go through the other matchups. We can get to the other regions here. In the second round, Auburn taking on Creighton. Ryan Kalkbrenner can give Janai Broom fits with his height and length. Do we think they're able to get past Auburn with him stumbling into the tournament, or do we think Auburn is able to advance past Creighton?
I think Auburn's guards are the difference in that game. Kalkbrenner versus Broom is an outstanding matchup. Don't get me wrong. That's going to be a true battle on the inside. But I think Auburn's guards, especially on the defensive end, guys like Denver Jones, Chad Baker-Mazara, Miles Kelly, are just able to take Creighton's guards out of the game, make them reliant on Kalkbrenner, and that's not a good recipe against Auburn.
If Auburn's guards struggle to shoot the ball, this could be a very, very close matchup, given how prevalent both these two teams' big men are. But Auburn, I think Miles Kelly is the difference. He is such a fantastic shooter. I've been high on him all year. I think he's going to continue to do great stuff going into the tournament. So go ahead and give me Auburn as well.
All right, we'll take Auburn to advance. And then do we think Yale's Cinderella run continues and they beat Michigan, or does Michigan and Trey Donaldson get to play his former team?
Look, no matter if we got Auburn in the Sweet 16, no matter who comes out of this game we've got here, there's a storyline in the Sweet 16 in Atlanta with Auburn, because Yale coming off their win against Auburn last year, and then Trey Donaldson, just like you mentioned, Alex, Trey Donaldson in Michigan. In my bracket, I have Yale. I do, but it's hard for me to continue to look at that, and I think I'm going to go back and forth on that throughout the week because of Michigan's size inside. I mean, Yale's size they had last year, Michigan just took it in Danny Wolf. And so I think I'm going to say Michigan here, and I love the matchup with them in Auburn in the Sweet 16.
Yeah, for me, it's very simplistic. I'm going to take the complete mismatch in the 2 7-footers against a team that isn't really that big. So I think Michigan is going to go ahead and advance here.
All right. Next matchup, San Diego State, the winner of San Diego State, North Carolina, which we've decided right now is North Carolina, taking on Iowa State, who has a lot of injury concerns going into the tournament. Upset continuing, going to be the Cinderella here in this part of the bracket, or does Iowa State weather the injuries and advance?
Oh, yeah, no. If North Carolina's beaten San Diego State and beaten Ole Miss at this point, they're playing their best basketball that they have all year long. They're continuing that second half versus Duke. So I'm 100% taking North Carolina to advance there, especially with a banged-up Iowa State team. I don't think they'll have the depth to keep up with North Carolina at that point.
Yeah, for me, the injuries just catch up with Iowa State. They're going to be too short-handed to play a team like North Carolina, who is very good on the offensive end, not to mention they've picked it up on the defensive end as late. So I'm going to go ahead and go North Carolina as well.
All right, last matchup, Marquette taking on Michigan State. This 2-7 matchup in the second round. Who ends up winning there, guys? We think Marquette pulls off the upset, or does Tom Izzo continue his dominance in March?
But there's a crazy coaching matchup in this one with Tom Izzo and Shaka Smart. That'd be something that would be just – I just want to watch the camera, the sidelines, watching those two coach against each other. But I'm going to go Michigan State. I think they're too deep for a team like Marquette.
Yeah, I think Marquette, they haven't really had momentum as of late. I think you look at Michigan State and what they were able to do through the kind of finale of the regular season. They've been such a great team. They've been hard to beat. And Tom Izzo and his experience is going to be hard to beat here as well. Go ahead and give me Michigan State to move on.
I'm back and forth on this, but it comes down to Marquette's reliance on Cam Jones. I know he's a great player, but Michigan State has too many bodies to throw at him. Jace Richardson, Jaden Akins, guys off the bench, Holloman. So I'll take Michigan State just due to their depth and Marquette's heavily reliance on a guard. All right, let's try to get to our Elite Eight here. Auburn taking on Michigan and UNC taking on Michigan State. Who are the final two teams in this region that will battle for a spot in the Final Four?
I love that Auburn-Michigan matchup because I think Michigan would be facing two mismatches when it comes to their front court with their 2 7-footers in their first 2 games, and then they run into Auburn where they're going to play 6'10" and 6'10" on the front court with Janai Broome and Dylan Cardwell. So I love this matchup, love the storyline with Trey Donaldson playing against Bruce Pearl and former team. But I think Auburn, the difference here is Auburn and Atlanta. That's why Auburn was fighting for that number 1 overall seed so much this year, is because the Atlanta region, Auburn and Atlanta is like Alabama and Birmingham, or North Carolina and Charlotte, or somebody like that. This Auburn and Atlanta team, they've already played there once this year, played against Ohio State, another Big Ten school earlier this year, and dog-walked them, beat it by 40. It wasn't even close. They shoot the ball really well in that arena. It's going to be 100% Auburn fans, especially if you got Michigan, Michigan State, and North Carolina in there. Okay, good luck with that. So I'm going to go with Auburn to advance. And then I've got Michigan State. I think North Carolina's road comes to an end. I think Michigan State's just too deep there.
Nathan, any disagreements with Gray?
For me, Michigan and Auburn is going to be such a close matchup. I kind of worry about Auburn's front court being able to step out on the perimeter and play good perimeter defense with a guy like Danny Wolf, who was able to stretch the floor a lot, given his size. And then the way Trey Donaldson's been playing of lately, I think if he's able to make big shots down the stretch of that game, then maybe they can pull off the upset. For me, I have Michigan advancing, but honestly, it's more of a coin flip at the end of the day. And then, again, going back to the bottom half of the bracket, I think UNC is going to run into problems against Michigan State. I think they're going to be outcoached. Hubert Davis has not impressed me as of late, and he's been very bailed out by the play of RJ Davis in the past. And unfortunately, that's going to end at some point. I think it's going to end against the coaching of Tom Izzo in his best month of all.
Well, I'll break the tie with the Auburn-Michigan game. I'm going to take Auburn. It's going to come down to a guy in Chad Baker-Mazara in this matchup, I think. If he can stay on the court against Michigan, he'll be the X factor in that game, because he is just he's such a pest for other ball handlers. He can be a pest to Trey Donaldson. Bruce Pearl's familiar with Trey Donaldson. He's familiar with Danny Wolf. He's coached against those guys before, whereas Dusty May hasn't faced Auburn before. So I'll take Auburn with the coaching advantage of Bruce Pearl getting that win. 1-2 matchup, Auburn-Michigan State. Who advances to the Final Four?
I think this is an outstanding game. I think this is a better game than Auburn-Michigan. I think this is, if you want to get it all the 1s and 2s together, I think Auburn-Michigan State's one of the best. I think Houston, Tennessee will be very good, but Auburn-Michigan State is an outstanding matchup. Very deep, very big, very, very strong teams. Both of them, if they get hot, could blow you out of the building. Again, for me, this difference is if Auburn has beaten Creighton and they have beaten Michigan, that means that they are shooting the ball really well. And if Auburn is shooting the ball well, Michigan State doesn't have a chance.
Nathan, we going to go with Auburn here?
In my bracket, I have Michigan, Michigan State, and, of course, we've already seen that once. Michigan State does not match up well against Auburn. They have no one who can stop Janai Broome. It's an easy answer. Auburn's going to go to the Final Four.
All right, we'll take Auburn in the Final Four. I was not going to disagree with anything y'all said with Auburn going there. Let's go over to the East region where Duke is the number 1 overall seed. We're going to take Duke winning that matchup. Highly doubt American or Mount St. Mary's gets past them. Let's move on to the 8-9 matchup, Mississippi State and Baylor. Mississippi State, another team heavily reliant on a guard in Josh Hubbard. Baylor, coming into the season, a lot of them expected to be better after spending so much money in the transfer portal to get a guy in Jeremy Roach and then Norchad O'Meara. And then you bring in some highly touted freshmen, including VJ Edgecombe. Who wins this matchup? The guard of Mississippi State or Baylor after underperforming in the regular season?
I like Mississippi State. I like Mississippi State because of what they faced all year long, the tough schedule that they've played. I really like Josh Hubbard, but I don't think Josh Hubbard is the big X factor here. I think guys like Jeffries and Kugel are the X factor here. If they can step up and guard guys like Jeremy Roach and Norchad O'Meara and Edgecombe and those guys, this is going to be a very physical fist fight for 40 minutes for the right to go play Duke in the second round. I like Mississippi State. I'm going with the little SEC bias here.
This is a tough matchup. If Josh Hubbard is able to get hot and he hits shots, I don't think it's close. But Baylor has a lot of talent on that team, and they haven't figured it out this season, but they can figure it out at any moment. They are very capable of winning a matchup like this. I think they're going to come around and start shooting the ball well when it matters most. I think Baylor is going to be able to win a close one against a very, very good Mississippi State team. I think Josh Hubbard's going to have a good game, but it's just not going to be enough to beat Baylor.
I'm going to go with Baylor as well. I don't think Mississippi State has enough to go against Baylor. Baylor has a lot of firepower. Granted, they've underperformed all year, but Norchad O'Meara played pretty good basketball in the Big 12 tournament. VJ Edgecombe, he's on and off, but when he's on, kind of like Josh Hubbard, he can be outstanding. Jeremy Roach on the bench right now, but he can be an X factor in this game. But we'll take Baylor to advance to play Duke. All right, 5-12 here. Another trendy upset pick. Liberty, probably the least trendy upset pick out of any of the 5-12. Oregon playing Liberty in the 5-12. Does Liberty take the upset, or does Oregon, after beating some pretty big opponents throughout the year, take the win in advance?
You said it, Alex. This is a very not trendy 5-12 upset. Of all the 5-12s, this is the one that's getting probably the most attention, to be honest with you, as a potential upset, which is why I like it. I'm going to go with the Liberty Flames. I think this game is going to be in the 90s, maybe the low 100s, because both teams like to go really, really fast. And both teams like to score the basketball. And I think I don't think Oregon – I don't necessarily think that they can't. I don't think Liberty's going to outrun Oregon is what I'm trying to say. But, again, 40 minutes, that's all it takes. I'm going to go with the Flames and see what y'all say.
For me, Oregon has been primed and ready for March since – the non-conference, they played an incredible non-conference. They know what to expect to go into situations like this. I worry about Liberty's defense down the stretch in games like this, especially given Oregon and how much firepower they have on the offensive end. I think Oregon is going to be able to take advantage of the talent gap, and they're going to be able to advance.
Well, give me Liberty or give me death. We're going with Liberty. We're taking Liberty, breaking the tiebreaker. All right, 4-13, Arizona, Akron. Akron, everybody's talking about it. Their winning streak throughout the season got broken by Ohio, but they're still back in it, won their conference, won the MAC. Are they going to upset Arizona, or is Caleb Love going to have that March magic and advance Arizona past them?
Yeah, that's another one that I don't think is as trendy as I think it probably should be. Because I really like Akron. I think Akron's played really good basketball this year. I think that they could be a team that if they were a 12 seed playing Oregon instead of Liberty, I think they would be an easy pick for me. But I don't like their matchup against Arizona. Arizona's very, very experienced. I think Caleb Love does make a little bit of March magic in his last season, even though he might go for 30 points on 30 shots, but that might be enough to beat Akron. So I'm going to go with Arizona.
Yeah, I think Caleb Love is going to be able to be just good enough to get past an Akron team who isn't really super impressive to me. I think that Arizona has a lot of talent. They haven't utilized it well this season, but they've also been able to win a few big games, and they've played in a very, very tough conference. I also don't think Akron's played a good schedule. The MAC has been really they've left a lot to be desired. It hasn't been as good in previous years. I think Arizona is going to go ahead and advance here.
All right, Arizona advancing to the round of 32. Another very, very trendy upset pick with 6 BYU taking on 11 VCU. I believe as the recording of this video, the line right now is 2.5 points in favor of VCU winning the game.
Wow.
Did we take the Rams, or are we going to take BYU after how they ended that season red hot?
Yeah, BYU ended the season red hot and then just ran into a buzzsaw in Houston, and they didn't score for like the first 10 minutes of the game, and they were down 20 and then never recovered, and then I believe they lost by 20. And you can't get down by 20 against a team like Houston. So you're dead in the water at that point. But I really do like VCU. I don't think that they – obviously these 3-letter acronym schools that are in the middle of nowhere, you never know what you're going to get out of them. And when you're talking about BYU, they're going to have some shooters. They're going to have some big wins. They're going to have some blowout wins. They're going to have some real bad losses. And that's what BYU is. And you could say the same thing about VCU, just in a worse conference this year. I like BYU because I think they're battle tested. I like the way that they ended their season. And I'm not trying to say I like the way they ended their season because they got blown out by Houston. But I think that is an advantage for them. They ended their season on a hot streak, blowing out Kansas, beating Iowa State, beating Utah, beating Iowa State again, beating West Virginia, beating Arizona by 1 point. And then they still have a sour taste in their mouth going into this VCU game because of that loss against Houston. I like BYU in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to second that. Go ahead and advance the Mormons. I think that the conference they played in will have them ready to play in a game like this. I think the favorability of the upset is what it kind of strays me away from picking it. A lot of the times when it's too popular, you're gonna have to stray away from it. I think this is one of those situations that I just feel a little bit better about BYU.
I picked VCU in my bracket. Max Cholga for VCU could be the white guy of March this year, but we'll take BYU. Y'all picked it 2-1. I really do think the winner of this matchup does beat Wisconsin and advances to the Sweet Six or the Elite Eight. Or Sweet 16. Sorry, does advance to the Sweet 16. So we'll take BYU to advance. The 3-14 matchup here, Wisconsin, Montana. Don't want to spend a lot of time on this, guys. Do we think Wisconsin ends up losing to Montana here?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so either.
Okay. St. Mary's taking on Vanderbilt in the 7-10 matchup. We going to have some SEC bias here with Vanderbilt, or does St. Mary's slow pace of playing basketball just lull you to sleep and Vanderbilt loses?
Yeah, I hate watching St. Mary's play basketball just because it's not pretty, but they do. They're successful, and they're successful in a conference where it's just them and Gonzaga, and it's always just them and Gonzaga. And it kind of sucks that St. Mary's is just not battle tested, but that's the difference in this game, 100%. You talk about Vanderbilt with wins over tournament teams like Missouri and Texas A&M and Ole Miss and Texas and all these teams, and I don't see how St. Mary's is able to fall Vanderbilt to sleep in a game where they're in the tourney after last year. So I think Vanderbilt wins that game. Give me the 10 seed.
I'm also going to take Vanderbilt. St. Mary's is one of those teams that has a style of play that can really put teams in terrible situations. I don't think Vanderbilt is going to be one of those teams. I think Vanderbilt's very versatile in the way they can play. They've experienced a lot of different teams throughout the SEC, and they've been able to knock off quite a few of them at that top level. So Vanderbilt is battle tested, and they will walk away with a win here.
We'll take Vanderbilt to advance. I would have personally picked St. Mary's, but Vanderbilt has, like y'all both mentioned, been battle tested. They're versatile in the way they play, Nathan. They have a guy in Jason Edwards who's very good. AJ Hogarth, who played at Michigan State under Tom Izzo, has played in these moments before. So we'll take Vanderbilt with some of their leadership there. But St. Mary's, they're due for something here, but I don't think it's this year.
You want to talk about white guys in March? Tyler Nickel for Vandy. Keep an eye on.
Mm-hmm. All right, last first round matchup here. Alabama taking on Robert Morris. Any upset brewing here?
Bama.
No. Okay.
Bama.
All right.
Bama could
let's
roll
go through here.
Mark Sears and Grant Nelson.
All right, round of 32, Duke, Baylor. Baylor pull off the upset. Jeremy Roach get the last laugh against Duke, or does Cooper Flag and Duke walk past Baylor?
I think by this point, Cooper Flag is back in the lineup, and I think that's the difference in this game. I think if Cooper Flag is not back in the lineup by this point, I think this would be either Saturday or Sunday, then that would cause some concerns because Baylor's a really talented team and can match up with a team like Duke. They just haven't performed as well this year. So I think that would be a scary matchup for Duke without Cooper Flag. But if Cooper Flag's there, I'm going with Blue Devils.
Yeah, Cooper Flag being the mismatch. Look, Baylor has a lot of talent. They are perfectly capable of winning a game like this. Who's going to guard Cooper Flag? That's my question. And that's the simplicity of it. So go ahead and advance Duke.
All right. Liberty's Cinderella run continue, or does Arizona and Caleb Love's Magic get past the Flames?
No, I'm going with Arizona. Liberty's defense scares me a little too much to bring them farther than that. I'm going to go with Arizona and Caleb Love going against Duke.
I think Caleb is going to start getting hot at this point. So go ahead and give me Arizona.
Well, I was going to say Liberty because I said give me Liberty or give me death, but
we're giving you death, Alex.
Yeah, I'm dead. I'm dead. Somebody come help. All right. The 6-3 matchup, BYU taking on Wisconsin. I alluded to it. I think the winner BYU VCU beats Wisconsin. Wisconsin too reliant on a guy in John Tonji. I know they have Blackwell who can pick up the slack, but BYU and VCU have a lot of different ways they can beat you, a lot of different players that can beat you. Are y'all with me on this, that BYU beats Wisconsin, or was Wisconsin beat them?
Yeah. Just like I mentioned, I think the way BYU's season ended could not have ended perfectly. With a long winning streak where they got battle tested, won some games, beat some really, really good high profile teams with a lot of talent, but still ended with the sour taste in their mouth. They just didn't score the first 10 minutes versus Houston, and it was pretty much even after that. So I'll take BYU.
Honestly, for me, this was more of a coin flip for me, but I do think BYU is going to get a close one here.
All right. It's not football, but Vanderbilt's taking on Alabama in our second round matchup. Do you think Vanderbilt once again beats Alabama, or does Alabama finally get over that Vanderbilt hump in the year?
Hopefully, at this point, I'm thinking Grant Nelson's back in the lineup. And who guards Grant Nelson? So at this point, if Grant Nelson is healthy and he's back in the lineup, now obviously that would change. If he's not, this is going to be a fantastic game. And I think it's going to be a lot reliant on which team shoots better from the outside. But I think if Grant Nelson's healthy and Alabama's healthy moving forward, I like Alabama in this one.
Yeah, for me, I think their reliance on Jason Edwards down the stretch in games for Vanderbilt is going to cost them a little bit. Alabama has so much talent they can throw around. They go, 10 deep sometimes. I mean, it is insane how much talent they have. And unfortunately, I think for Vanderbilt, they're just going to be out-talented here. If Grant Nelson is back, this might be a blowout. Grant Nelson in March is just different. Also, look for Mark Shears to get hot. He is perfectly capable of that too. I just don't really see a case in which Vanderbilt is able to win this.
All right. Let's go to our final four of this region. Duke taking on Arizona and BYU taking on Alabama. Are we going to take the higher seeds here with Duke and Alabama advancing, or are we going to have something different?
Nathan, you go first.
Caleb Love is hot. Give me Arizona.
Great. We go with Caleb Love beats Duke's rear end again.
Advance them. Cooper Flag is nothing compared to Caleb Love.
All right. Bama and BYU. What are we doing here? Bama?
I have BYU. And again, let me say why. Alabama's bigs are just way too big for BYU. And that is a problem. And that's why I'm going to go back and forth on this until Thursday at 11 and when the brackets close. But currently I have BYU because again, the way that their season ended, they're battle tested. They can shoot the lights out. I think that they can shoot with Alabama, especially if Grant Nelson, I'm not saying he's not out of the lineup, but not what he was this time last year. in the Sweet 16, because goodness gracious, if he is, it's just this won't be close because they beat a really good North Carolina team last year with a hot Grant Nelson. But BYU, the way their season ended, if they've come off a win over VCU and Wisconsin, I like BYU in this game. And, on the other end for Alabama, I think their second round game against a Vanderbilt is a lot more of a physical, grueling battle than BYU Wisconsin is. So as of right now, I've got BYU, but man, I've clicked that different so many times already. I have no idea who's going to win that game. I love that Sweet 16 matchup. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah, if you want to talk about battle tested, Alabama has one of the best strength of schedules they played all season. They've seen all types of teams, played all different types of styles, and they've been able to pick up some big wins. I think this is going to be a close game. I just think it's going to come down to the amount of talent that Natives was able to add in the offseason. It only takes one guy for Alabama to get hot and rely on them. A lot of unsung heroes last year. I think you can see some of the same stuff going on this year. Whether that be Mohamed Diabate coming out, Grant Nelson, Jaron Stevenson, we've seen him pop up before, Mark Sears. You can go down the list. There's so many different guys capable of having their big moment. I just think Alabama's a little bit too much.
All right, I'm taking Alabama. It's pretty clear why I'm doing it. No need to talk about it anymore. Alabama and Arizona. Caleb Love magic continue, or does Alabama advance to the Final Four for the second straight season?
I'll say this. No matter who I've had winning, BYU or Alabama, I've got them beating Arizona or Duke. No matter who's there, I think they advance. So I'll take Alabama in that one. I think Alabama's too talented for Caleb Love in Arizona. Arizona's really good. They're senior led, but so is Alabama. And Alabama's way more battle tested than them. And by this point, if they've beaten a team like BYU, they've beaten a team like Vanderbilt throughout their run, I think give me Bama.
Yeah, I think this is one of the more closer games, especially if Caleb Love is hot at this point. I think if he's having a good shooting, I think it goes back and forth. But at the end of the day, Alabama has more size, more talent. They have more guys who can shoot the ball. And I think the X factor that people are not going to be able to pay attention to is Mohamed Diabate. The minutes he gives you are just undervalued. I mean, you can see him throughout the season and what he adds to a team like this, the amount of hustle. He is the X factor in a game like this. Go ahead and give me Alabama to advance to the Final Four.
Two teams from the state of Alabama advancing to the Final Four.
Yeah.
What time are we in?
Time to get Troy down there.
Pandemonium.
Time to get Troy in there real quick.
All right, let's go over the West region. Florida taking on Norfolk State. I think with the 1 seed, we're just going to kind of move on. UConn taking on Oklahoma. Dan Hurley.
UConn.
We're going to take
Dan Hurley's too good.
Gray, we're going to go Dan. That's the reason I picked him, Dan Hurley.
I really like Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma's playing well right now. I love Jeremiah Fears. It's just that's really hard to pick against UConn. And they've won 12 straight games in this tournament in the last 2 years, so it's really hard to pick against them. It's going to take a team like Florida for me to pick against them. So I'll go with UConn.
All right, 5-12, always a trendy matchup, always a trendy upset pick. Memphis taking Colorado State. Does Memphis get the win over Colorado State, or do the Rams get the upset?
No, I'm going with Memphis here. I think Memphis, the way that they played through their conference tournament, beating a team like UAB in that conference championship, they are battle tested. They were in the Maui Invitational Championship against Auburn. They've beaten some really good teams this year. They're really talented. I love PJ Haggerty. I love the way he plays. Danja is going to be a problem for any big in this tournament. I'll go with Memphis.
Yeah, for me, this is one of the matchups I wanted to pick as an upset, but I look at what Memphis has been through this season, and they've impressed me a lot with the adversity they have faced, and then their previous game against UAB. It was a very, very good team, and I thought, honestly, might come out with the win. That's a good game. Memphis is a good team. I think they'll be able to make it out of the first round.
Memphis reminds me a lot. I talked about it with y'all earlier. It reminds me a lot of NC State last year, where you have a very good guard in PJ Haggerty, and then also a very good and skilled big man, Danja. And that's going to be the key for me is you have I think Haggerty's well better than DJ Horn. Danja probably not as good as DJ Burns, but I'll take Memphis here to advance past Colorado State. I just don't think they'll be able to keep up with PJ Haggerty when it's all said and done. Maryland and Grand Canyon, I don't think people are talking about this enough. The Antelopes, they advanced to the round of 32 last year, played Alabama, gave them a game. Maryland has about 5 players that are good enough, and that's about it. Do we think the depth of Maryland comes to bite them in the butt, or do they advance?
That's another one that I'm just going to be really back and forth on until Thursday morning, because I think when you think about a team being a 4 seed, you think they're going to have more depth across the court than a 13 seed, but that's just not the case in this game. Maryland does go about 5 deep, just like Alex said, and they're very good. They played really well in the Big Ten, and a lot of their losses were just close, buzzer beater, heartbreaking losses. They could very easily be a 2 seed in this tournament if some of those shots go a different way. But I'm going to be really back and forth on it because I really like the way Grand Canyon plays. They're a high neck pace type of team, and they're really deep and athletic as well. Alex, you mentioned what they gave Alabama a game in the first round last year. Honestly, more of a game than North Carolina did. So, but as of right now, I've got Maryland advancing. I like Derek Queen, but that's one I want to be really back and forth on for sure.
There's something in my gut telling me this is going to happen. Give me the Lopes.
Let's go.
Look, Maryland has the ability to get hot and completely blow a team like Grand Canyon out of the water. But the depth worries me. And the physicality Grand Canyon has played with in the past, especially this year, that worries me against a team like Maryland. So go ahead and give me the Lopes.
I mean, if Derek Queen or Julian Reese or one of the guards, Rodney Rice, gets in foul trouble, how does Maryland weather that storm? Grand Canyon's going to play at a breakneck speed. They're going to get up and down the court, and that's where fouls are very heavily called. So I'm going to take Grand Canyon here just based on the fact that Maryland's probably going to get in foul trouble, and they don't have enough pieces to get past the Lopes. Missouri and Drake, a lot of people have Drake getting past Missouri just because they love Bennett Sturts, Drake, Ben McCollum, what he's done there. I'm not a big Drake believer. Are y'all the Drake believers, or are y'all going to go with the Missouri Tigers?
I am picking Drake, but I don't want to say it's because of Drake. I want to say it's because Missouri has looked really bad the last month of this season. Ever since they beat Alabama, scoring all those points at home that game, they have looked really, really bad. I mean, losses to Vanderbilt, losses to Oklahoma. Obviously, the loss to Arkansas was not good. You got beat up pretty good by Florida in the SEC tournament. There's no shame in that. But I don't like the way Missouri has been playing recently, even though they had a really good stretch in February and even the end of January. So as of right now, I've got Drake, but I guess we're moving Missouri on.
Yeah, Missouri might have played bad, but Drake plays such a slow pace. I think the slowest pace of any tournament team.
It is.
And that limits the number of possessions, but Missouri usually utilizes their possessions pretty well. They like to speed things up. They're good at shooting the ball, and not to mention they have great big men. So I'm going to go ahead and move on Missouri.
Yeah, just one thing to keep note for Missouri, Mark Mitchell is dealing with an injury. He's going to play, but that's something to keep an eye out on for Missouri going forward. Another team dealing with injuries, Texas Tech, dealing with 2 key injuries to them, but they played good all year, taking on UNC Wilmington in a 3-14 matchup. UNC Wilmington gave Kansas a scare earlier in the season. Is this a potential upset, guys? Or are we going to take Texas Tech to get past UNC Wilmington?
I like Texas Tech, but UNC Wilmington is a really, really good team, and that's definitely a great game to keep an eye on.
All right, and probably the most legendary part of this bracket, Kansas taking on Arkansas, and then St. John's taking on the trash can beaters of Omaha. Let's start with Kansas and Arkansas. Who gets past there, Bill Self or Coach Cal?
So I was going to go Kansas, and then I saw the news about Boogie Flan returning to the Arkansas lineup. And I obviously don't know how much minutes he hasn't played since middle of January. They thought he was going to be out for the rest of the year, but then Arkansas, is going to be in the tournament, so he wants to play now. And obviously it's a hand or a wrist injury or something like that, so that could definitely affect that. But Arkansas's got a lot of talent. I know Thiero is not going to play. That's what's drawing me away from them. But I do not like Kansas at all. They just got a sour
basketball over there.
They just got a sour taste in my mouth. I don't like the way Hunter Dickinson plays. All that talent that they spend all that money on in the transfer portal has not worked together well at all. With AJ Storr and Riley Griff, I don't like him. Arkansas.
That's absolutely disgusting. I just threw up in my mouth a little bit. Arkansas is a terrible team. Terrible. Awful.
So is Kansas.
Kansas is also terrible, but they're a little less terrible than Arkansas is. Go ahead and give me Kansas.
I'm with Nathan there. I'm taking Kansas. They were the number 1 overall team in the country to start the season. They got to figure it out at some point. Bill Self in March, he figures it out when he wants to. We'll go with Kansas. Coach Cal's track record these past few seasons in March has been abysmal, so that's a big reason there. All right, St. John's, Omaha. St. John's. Okay.
St. John's.
All right. Florida, UConn. I think we all alluded to it. We're going to take Florida. It's so hot right now. Memphis, Grand Canyon. Memphis.
I'm going to go Memphis as well.
PJ
I love that game, man. Talk about some athletes on the court in that game. My goodness. That's going to be a fun game to watch. That's going to be up and down. You can get some athletic plays. I like Memphis, though. Give me Hardaway.
Missouri, Texas Tech, both teams dealing with a little bit of injuries to some key guys. Who ends up winning that one?
Texas Tech.
Yeah, I'm going to go Texas Tech. I like Missouri. I think they're capable of great things, but Texas Tech, I've been high on them all season long. I think they're one of those stinky teams that might find their way in the Final Four if they start playing hot.
Yeah, I had Missouri getting past Texas Tech here just because how deep Missouri is and some of the players they have on their team, Caleb Grill, Mark Mitchell, a lot of other guys. But we'll go with Texas Tech 2-1. So that ends up winning. And Kansas and
St. John's. Get the crap show out.
All right, Florida, Memphis, Florida. Texas Tech, St. John's.
Look, if Texas Tech is healthy, I like Texas Tech because St. John's
cannot shoot the three.
No,
they
cannot shoot the three, and they don't have to shoot the 3-ball well to beat Omaha and Kansas. They're gonna have to shoot the 3-ball well to beat Texas Tech, and you're not gonna have any fans out there because it's way out west. And there's no real St. John's fans anyway. Texas Tech.
I'm going to go and second that. I think Texas Tech and the shooting capabilities they have are just going to be a little bit too much for St. John's. I've worried about St. John's all season long. Their poor shooting as what has kept me away from them. I do like the way they play defense. I like the way they can score in transition. But at some point in the tournament, you're going to have to be able to knock down big shots, and I think this is where St. John's falls off.
All right, we'll take Texas Tech to advance. Florida and Texas Tech. I think we're all kind of clear here on Florida. We love Florida. They ended the season so hot. They have depth at big man. They have probably the best backcourt in the country. So Florida advancing. The third SEC team to advance to our Final Four. Crazy. And depending on how this region goes, we could have the 4 teams that made the Final Four of the SEC tournament making the Final Four of the NCAA tournament. But we'll see how the final Midwest region goes. Once again, the 1 seed Houston taking on SIU Edwardsville. We're going to take Houston. Gonzaga and Georgia, an 8-9 matchup that everybody's back and forth on. Gonzaga is really high in all the analytical stuff, but another team that doesn't really get tested, not battle tested a whole lot. Very weak conference. Georgia, we know they're battle tested. They actually beat St. John's earlier in the season. And Florida. So are we going to take the battle tested Georgia or the metric winning Gonzaga Bulldogs?
That's another one that I'm just so back and forth on, and we'll be back and forth on until Thursday morning. But as of right now, I've got Gonzaga, but it's really scaring me that they're not battle tested, and Georgia has some weird losses on that schedule, but they're all the SEC teams, so they were battle tested all year and with big wins, like the win at home against Florida, and then against St. John's as well, a 1 and 2 seed from the West region. So I don't know. That one I'm back and forth on, but I'll vote here. I'll vote for Gonzaga.
I think that Georgia has a tremendous amount of talent that people don't recognize enough of. As a freshman, has impressed me nonetheless. I don't know if I can ride with Gonzaga. They play in such a weak conference. They have not impressed me all season long. I know what they've been able to do in the tournament before. They are experienced. Mark Few is a great coach, but something tells me Georgia is going to get this win, and a lot of people aren't going to be happy because they're going to pick Gonzaga.
The biggest thing for Georgia here is the interior defense they play. Much better than Gonzaga. And Gonzaga, great Ike, if he can't get going, I know they have a lot of good guards, Hickman, Nimhard, Battle, who played at Arkansas last year. But Georgia, the interior defense, shutting down Ike is going to just absolutely demolish Gonzaga. So we'll take the Georgia Bulldogs to advance. A 5-12 matchup, Clemson-McNeese. McNeese last year, everybody was picking them to get to the Sweet 16, upset Cinderella. Are they going to be the Cinderella now, or are we going to take Clemson, who a lot of people are high on?
No. I'm going to take Clemson. I'm not falling for McNeese again. Will Wade has such a weird – I have such a weird thought when I think of Will Wade because all I remember is the crap that he pulled at LSU. And I know he's done really, really well at McNeese and turned them into a tournament program year after year after year. And they're a really good basketball team. But I don't think they're as good of a basketball team as they were a year ago where they did not have success in the tournament. So I'm going to go with Clemson.
This is my pick for a 5-12 upset. I think even though McNeese wasn't able to do it the year before or the year before that, I think they're due for an upset. Clemson, coming off of last year, I know they're experienced, but they lost crucial parts of their team. They played in a weak ACC. I think this is just one time. I think I'm going to have my trust in McNeese.
I'm going with Clemson. Love their backcourt. Love their front court. Got a 7-footer. Got Ian Shefflin back. I'm going with Clemson to get past McNeese. I'm not a Will Wade fan. Not a McNeese fan. Nope. All right. 4-13 matchup. Purdue taking on High Point. High Point mean mugging their way to the NCAA tournament. Are we going to take the trendy upset pick here in High Point at North Carolina, or are we going to take Purdue, Nathan's favorite team in the entire country?
This is my pick has absolutely nothing to do with High Point. I really don't know much about High Point. I know they're definitely not battle tested. I know that for sure. But I know they finished the year on a really long winning streak. That's about all I know. But this pick is strictly directed at Purdue. That was a terrible end to your season. Getting blown out by Michigan in the final in the Big Ten tournament, losing to teams like Indiana. And getting blown out by Wisconsin, get blown out by Michigan State. You have an All-American on your team. You went to the national championship last year. I know Zach Edey's on the Grizzlies now, but Trey Kaufman-Renn had an outstanding non-conference, but it just wasn't the same. They're in conference play. It's just this pick is directly made at Purdue. I'm going with High Point.
No. I can't do it. Brain Smith, Purdue, Trey Kaufman-Renn, too much. Purdue.
Yep, I'm with Nathan. I think the experience from Purdue last year, too much for High Point. Illinois, the 6th seed, taking on the winner of Texas and Xavier. Who do we have winning here? Does the first 4 team?
Illinois is too good on offense. I'm sorry. If Texas ends up winning, I think it can be a good game, but they have so much of a reliance on Trey Johnson. He's a freshman. Like, freshmen don't usually have their moment in March. Sure. I'm sorry. Give me Illinois.
That's a good point. I have Texas moving on.
Me too.
Because I think Texas is deeper than Illinois. And yes, they do rely on Trey Johnson offensively too much, but you talk about the experience of a guy like Tremont Mark, what he had his experience at Houston, then guys like Weaver and Kaluma. I think Texas is really good. The only problem I have with Texas is their coaching. Roddy Terry is terrible. I mean, he's got an outstanding group of players on his team. This is the only reason they even in this tournament. But I get concerned about late game coaching adjustments at halftime, that sort of thing. That's where the scare is for Texas. But I'll vote for Texas.
No, Trevon Moore's going to shoot him in the foot. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm going Texas. I think the winner of Texas Xavier, regardless of who it is going to be Illinois. Not a big fan of how they ended their season. Too reliant on the 3-point shot. Doesn't fall enough for them. Not enough veteran leadership on their roster. So Texas and Xavier are going to go past them. 3-14, Kentucky and Troy.
Kentucky.
Troy. As much as I love
this
Troy,
pick is
Troy
completely
terrible.
made at Kentucky. Just like my high point pick against Purdue, this pick is strictly has nothing to do with Troy being good or not. Kentucky is terrible. They are terrible.
Well, we're taking Kentucky. I'm sorry.
They are
Gray's just hate picking them.
Yeah,
All
you're
right,
absolutely.
All
right, Mr.
right,
All right, let's get
your
7-10.
hatred blinds you, Gray. You need to focus.
The 7-10 UCLA and Utah State in one of the weirdest and probably worst first round matchups. I don't know.
Utah State. I think
Utah State.
UCLA is just not that good.
All right. I think UCLA just because Mick Cronin, he's been there before. He's won games in the tournament. I know Utah State has gone through 3 head coaches in 3 years. Don't know if that changes the vote here.
No.
We're gonna flip it. We're gonna okay.
No.
Tennessee, Wofford, Tennessee.
Give me Wofford. No,
All right, Gray over here hate picking.
Just kidding. Give me Tennessee. All
right. Houston and Georgia. Houston. Love Georgia. Clemson, Purdue.
Clemson. I'm taking Purdue. I'm taking Purdue.
Clemson. They're going to be able to completely take Braden Smith out of the game. If you take Braden Smith out of the game for Purdue, it is completely over. The one game where Braden Smith was completely taken out of the game for Purdue, it was against Auburn and against somebody like Denver Jones. Auburn dog.
We're taking Clemson. So
Clemson is not making it past the first round. McNeese State is going to win.
All right. Winner of Texas Xavier taking on Kentucky. Who we got winning? Kentucky.
Kentucky.
Utah State, Tennessee.
Tennessee.
Okay.
Tennessee.
Houston, Clemson. Evil picking.
Houston. Yeah.
Too defensive. A lot of veteran leadership. I mean, it's just too much for Clemson. Love them to death, but Kelvin Sampson and that whole team, LJ Cryer, too much. Kentucky, Tennessee. Kentucky's beat Tennessee before.
It's hard to beat them 3 times in the season. Give me Tennessee.
That's true. I'm going to go with Tennessee as well. I think by this point, Tennessee's playing their best basketball they have all year. Even when they were, number 1 in the country, I don't think they were playing this good. I think if they're making shots, guys like Chaz Lanier and Zakai Ziegler are making shots, they can beat anybody. So I'll go with Tennessee.
All right, Houston and Tennessee, a game where you might see a total of 60 points scored.
20 points, yeah, completely.
Who are we going to take in the defensive slugfest this is going to be if it happens?
These are by far the 2 best defenses in the country right now. They play super hard. I think you can look at 2 different guys at the box score, and whoever has the most points, that team wins the game. Chaz Lanier for Tennessee and LJ Cryer for Houston. That's pretty easy to say because they're the star players on both of these teams, but they're also probably the better outside shooters. But I think going forward, I think Houston's got better outside shooters than Tennessee does. I also love Emmanuel Sharp and Uzan. I think if Uzan's making shots, they're they can beat anybody. So I'm going to go with Houston.
Rick Barnes is not sniffing that Final Four. Give me Houston.
Y'all hate picking, yeah.
Well, there's a reason for that hate pick. All right, our Final Four here. Auburn taking on Florida and Alabama taking on Houston. We've seen both these matchups before. Alabama and Houston earlier in the season before conference play got started. And Auburn and Florida, obviously, in conference play. Who's winning both these matchups to advance to the championship game?
Okay, so I'm going to start with Auburn and Florida. We saw this matchup in Noble Arena, and I thought Auburn played their worst second half that they've played all year. It looked like Auburn or Florida made a jump on them early and shot the lights out, and Auburn never thought that they could get back in the game, even though they did make a run towards the very end of the game to make the score only a 9-point spread. I think by this point, both teams will be playing the best that they are. But this is going to hurt. But I'm gonna go with Florida in this game. I think this. I'm going to love watching these two backcourts play. Everybody's going to say, "Oh, watch the front court: Condon versus Broom, and Carwell versus Handlogden, and those guys." It of course, but watching guys like Denver Jones and Todd Pettiford, Miles Kelly against Walter Clayton Jr., Will Richard, and Elijah Martin, that's going to be the difference. And I think whoever makes the most 3-pointers wins the game. But I'm going to go with Florida.
Nathan, you going Florida too?
It's a hard pick, man. It's an insanely hard pick. Florida is probably the best team in college basketball right now. The way that they've been playing, they are insane to watch. They blow me away every single time they take the court. It's hard to pick against a team like Auburn and Janai Broom. And to see what they did all season long, to get to this point, you got to imagine that they have some fight in them. I think they get their revenge. I think Auburn beats Florida.
I'm back and forth on this as well. I love Florida's backcourt. That's the big advantage for them going against Auburn. I realize Auburn, Todd Pettiford, has been playing really good basketball outside the final game of the SEC tournament. Chad Baker-Mazara, when he's not thrown out of the game, is really good. Denver Jones, Miles Kelly. I think this is a game where Miles Kelly just absolutely goes off. Just out of the blue, just goes off, drops 30 points, torches Florida. So I'm going to take Auburn to get past Florida.
This is exactly what happened last year.
All right, last matchup here. Alabama and Houston. Does Alabama continue the success over Houston, or does Houston get their revenge?
Okay, so I think looking at both of these teams' paths that we have, if both teams are completely healthy, I like Alabama in this game, and I say that strictly because Houston has just come off Georgia, Clemson, and Tennessee.
Yeah, right there.
And less than a week later, they're playing against one of the fastest paced team in college basketball. Alabama's coming off, Arizona and BYU and Vandy. That's not as grueling as what Houston had just gone through in terms of the defenses that you're playing and the athletes that you're playing. You're going to play some really good teams, but I think that's the difference. I think the fatigue is the difference. I'm picking Alabama.
Nathan, are you going to do it? Are we going to do it?
If you would have asked me a year ago, if this happened a year ago, then Houston is no doubt winning this game. The addition of Cliff Amore at center gives Alabama the advantage in the height department. Outside of the Florida game and the SEC tournament, I thought Cliff Amore has elevated his game to another level. He's been playing a lot more aggressively, and I think he's been a big contributor in Alabama, not just on the defensive end, but on the offensive end. I keep going back to the fact that Alabama has a guy in Mohamed Diabate that sometimes he just does not give a crap. He just does not give a crap. He will do whatever he wants. Grant Nelson, completely capable. If he's healthy at this point, I think he's probably playing some of his best basketball. And we cannot forget about a guy in Mark Sears who is able to knock down some of the clutchest shots you'll ever see. I can't believe I'm saying this.
We're doing it?
I can't believe I'm saying this.
We're doing it.
Give me Alabama.
Auburn, Alabama, the Iron Bowl of basketball in the national championship. Great. If this happens,
just so you know,
are going to talk to you for an entire week.
Just so y'all know, I won't watch this game at all. Like this game, I will not watch it at all.
Oh my God.
If this happens, I will not. My TV will not come on the entire day until I figure out the score the next morning.
I don't think whoever wins the game will never let the other team hear the end of whatever happens.
This will be the end of the state of Alabama. It will just disappear.
Yeah. It'll implode. Yeah.
We will just fade away, disappear, no longer to exist. But we got to pick the winner here. Who are we going to pick to win it? Because they split the series. Auburn won at Alabama. Alabama won at Auburn. Who wins it on a neutral site in San Antonio?
I didn't have this game.
How did we get
I would have
here?
Florida. I would have Florida wiping Alabama off the floor,
Oh, same
just
here,
like they did
but-
in the SEC tournament. Okay, but I don't.
Yeah, we gotta take our Barner and Bammer glasses off. We gotta take them off. We gotta be real here.
All right. At this point, given the pass, I think, and if this is true, Auburn would be, I believe they'd be 12-1 on a neutral floor. Only loss coming to Tennessee and Nashville, which you can call that a neutral floor. Sure. Alabama would be insanely good on a neutral floor too. I don't know their exact record, but they would have the loss to Oregon. They would have the loss to Florida in the SEC tournament. I don't know of another loss on the neutral floor. I don't think so. You lost to Purdue, the Ole Miss, and Missouri. So these two teams, I think, in my opinion, are better on neutral floors than they are in their home arenas. But I also think both of them are better on the road than in their home arena. And this game should be played in Birmingham. If this happens, they should move the Final Four court over to Legacy Arena, because you cannot have this game in San Antonio. This is ridiculous. Oh my God. I can't do it. Alabama wins.
Nathan, it's all on you, buddy.
If we've gotten to this point, Lord have mercy. Move the game to Talladega Super Speedway. We're playing it outside. It's gonna be crazy. Gosh, the way Auburn has played this season, their guard play has been insane. Janai Broome is unbelievable. Even when Alabama won in Auburn, there was nothing we could do to stop him. There's nothing any team would have probably been able to do to stop him at this point.
Yeah.
Auburn's probably been a buzzsaw. Not to mention their guard play being ridiculous. Miles Kelly's going to be ridiculous. Todd Pettiford, he's going to be a freshman who can step up in big moments. And that factor to this game is Denver Jones. Does he lock up Mark Sears again? I think so. Give me Auburn.
All down to me. You said the X factor is Denver Jones, Nathan. I'm saying the X factor in this matchup is LeBaron Philon. If LeBaron Philon plays like he did against Florida, Auburn will just walk Alabama up and down the court. But if we get LeBaron Philon that played against Kentucky, Auburn is not standing a chance. And if we get the Chris Youngblood that shot the ball the way he did against Mississippi State, Auburn has no chance. And we can say the same thing for Auburn. If we get the Chad Baker-Mazara that was in this game, and the Dylan Carbill that was in this game, and this and this and this.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to it, each of these teams battle tested throughout the tournament, going to be playing their best basketball up to this point. It's tough.
I need an answer.
You need an answer? That's all the time we have for today. Thank you. No, but seriously, gosh, I'm going to take Alabama just based on the fact Nathan's dead. That I believe that Alabama's guards can be more impactful in clutch moments than Auburn's guards can be. And I know Janai Broome is that guy for Auburn in the clutch. But Mark Sears, LeBaron Philon, Chris Youngblood, I think that'll be the difference in the game for Alabama. If they've gotten to this point, somebody will be confident. That'll be my pick, is the Crimson Tide win.
Thanks, Lee Corso.
All right. What's going to be the score here? What's going to be the score? 0-0?
No. Let's go.
I think this is a really high scoring affair.
Let's go 95-91. I guess.
This is really high. I don't think this is like, I guess both games were in the 90s or the high 80s between these two teams this year. And I think if both of these teams have gotten this far and have beaten Houston and Florida, who we should have just picked as the championship game. I think both offenses are cooking cooking like crazy. This is going to be a really high scoring affair if this happens. It would burn down the state of Alabama. I think this game would burn down the state of Alabama more than a college football playoff Iron Bowl.
Probably.
Yep, probably. Which is crazy nowadays to say.
Oh, so
if you did this 15 years ago, somebody would have punched you and said you were absolutely insane. Check yourself in.
What does Auburn and Alabama do in the tournament anyway?
All right, that'll finish the bracket. Alabama winning our bracket to Nathan's disgust.
Great.
Well, we'll be back next week. I believe the Sweet 16 will be what we'll be talking about is the Sweet 16. So we'll have that for you. Appreciate everyone for listening and watching, students of the game.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.